Okay, so hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Default Global. This is where we connect with global first entrepreneurs and remote work experts from all around the world to share their experiences. Our guest today is Justine Camacho, marketing and community at WeWorkRemotely. Justine, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm super happy to be here.
Absolutely. So, Justine, you have quite an interesting background. You're currently leading marketing and partnership at WeWorkRemotely, which allows you, I guess, to interact with amazing remote first companies, on a daily basis. With that, can you tell us more about your journey and how you have come to be where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So I actually studied communication sciences. I'm Mexican. And then after that, I just started doing marketing for just life led me that way. I had friends that did marketing, so I was just doing marketing with them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started freelancing. And then I had a co-working space in Mexico. And kind of in the meantime, and all of that, I started working remotely. I started writing for a travel blog. And that's when I was like, okay, I think this is exactly what I want, exactly what I need, working remotely. And I've been working remotely for 6 or 7 years now, I think.
Okay.
I closed that co-working space, and then I started traveling a bit. I was traveling between Europe and Mexico. And then I started working for a legal startup, which I was doing also marketing. And then I landed this job at WeWorkRemotely, where I kind of do everything marketing related, community related, partnership related. And I think that's it in in a few sentences to not bore everyone.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds perfect. Okay, and WeWorkRemotely being one of the, I guess, largest, right, remote work communities in the world, I suppose, right? And with that, what challenges have you seen companies face when they first begin hiring talent from abroad, right? So can you talk a bit about it?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges I see is some companies just don't know how to do it. Right. It obviously it's not the same. If you're, for example, a company based in the US, to hire someone in the US than to hire someone in Mexico or in Europe or wherever that is. So many companies are like, how do I even, all the legal stuff. The good companies, the ones that really care about their employees, the ones that really, want to employ people correctly, they kind of have those challenges where it's like, how do I do this? How do I know where can I hire? And if I want to hire someone there, what are the steps that I need to follow? So I think that's one of the first challenges companies have. And then on the other side, and I think because all this legal stuff, I think there are already a lot of companies that can help you with that, and that you can just reach out to them, and they're like, okay, employer of the record, and it's kind of that legal stuff can be, I think, more easily solved than this other one, that it's more all the kind of logistics of it. What I mean is, from even where to publish your job listing, or where, to find the remote talent, to interviewing them, to onboarding them, to hiring them, to all of that. I think that's also super challenging. And I think the reason it's really challenging, it's because many companies that start, going remote, sometimes are very small. Others are huge, and of course we have, but many of them are kind of small. And if you think about these types of companies, I don't know, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, they didn't have these challenges where they had to think, and how will I work with someone that is 9 hours ahead of me or 5 hours before me, right? They did not have those challenges. And it was already difficult for some of these companies to work, right? Even in the same time zone, even in the same office, because it's just growing companies. So I think this is really, really like I've seen that many companies struggle with is that like how do we bring these people and make sure that like they are happy in the company, that we're also happy with them, and that we can accomplish our goals as a company and they can accomplish their goals. And I think that's like it's very tricky, I've seen.
Okay, got it. And you touched this a bit in terms of they simply didn't know how to do this, right? So, as a marketing leader for a top remote job board, right? So can you suggest maybe the best approach from your point of view for a new company for a company who is new, that is new to this global hiring, how they can do this? I mean, maybe can you briefly walk us through some steps that they should do?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think, at WeWorkRemotely, we try, and like since I've been here, we always try to create guides and to create, like all these free resources where you can just go and read and inform yourself. Right. Many things seem way more difficult than they actually are. And it's just a matter of informing yourself. And, we work with some partners like, I don't know, like Oyster, even Safety Wing, for example, that they give insurance. And I know they all have amazing resources that you can like go to their websites and download their, like the reports or like their guides or everything. It's just a matter of going there. And, like personally on WeWorkRemotely, what we try to do with customer support is always, there's always a human there to answer you. And even if we don't have like all the answers, we can point you in the right direction. And we have tons of companies that come to us and have these questions of like, hey, but how do I hire? Or how do I pay people? Or how do I insure them? Or whatever that might be. And even, for example, if we don't have like a complete guide of insurance, we're like, well, like we work with this amazing partner that is a Safety Wing. You can go to them and, like you can even get a discount from us or whatever. And you can go there. So, on our side, we always try to be like as helpful as possible. Luckily, right now, since, so many companies went remote and there was like this remote work boom, there is a lot of information out there, way more than maybe 6 years ago when I started working remotely and I also had no idea how to get paid or anything. And I think right now, like there is a lot of information. So what I would do is go to like these companies that are, like the leaders in remote work, like remote, and like Oyster, like, like Go Global, like go and just go through their resources. That's like the easiest. And in my experience, and like, at least with the partners we work with, they all have, like, they're all great people. Like, I mean, I don't know if I've just been lucky, but they're all great people that are, like are very open to like help companies and to even, for example, we work with Remove First, which is another EOR. And they are like, well, like we're perfect for these types of companies. And when these types of companies don't come to us, we can recommend them to like other, and it's this kind of like a place where also these companies are, like they want to really help you and not, just like take something from you or whatever.
Okay, sounds good. And so while I was preparing for this call, for this interview, I just walked through your website, just look at companies that you have there. I mean, I found a bunch of my clients there, by the way. And with that, there are a bunch of companies, right? And they're just competing for the best talents, right? So with that, my question is, how can those companies, those startups, technology companies, can stand out and effectively attract top talent from around the world?
A lot of companies also, especially now, there's so much offer, right? And what we always tell companies that we work remotely is like, you need to sell yourself. So I think we come from a place where a lot of companies think that just because they have an opening, people will apply. And it's just, like sometimes they just have descriptions, like your responsibilities, like you have to do this, and they think that is enough for job seekers to be attracted to them, right? And what we always say is this is like a two-way thing, where also the job seeker is choosing where to work. And I know, and we've all been there, like looking for a job, and sometimes that's difficult. But still, when you are, like in need for a job, you try to find the job that fits what you want. And we've seen a lot of job seekers that, for example, right now care more about the values of the companies, that care more about benefits, like all these things that are important. And so what we always tell them is like, you need to really explain what's in it for the job seeker. So it's not enough for you to say, you will lead the marketing department. It's like, okay, yes, but what else? Like, do you have an amazing team? What are your values? I don't know. Do you have mentorships? So all of those things are so important for job seekers, and it's so important for companies to really go there. And different things connect with different people, and it's also okay to be clear on who you want to hire. I like companies don't want to hire just anyone. They want to hire someone that fits in their team culture. That is right. And maybe you feel you check all the boxes maybe on a job description, but if there's no culture fit, then it doesn't matter, because like even if you have all the skills, if you don't have the same values, it won't matter. So those things, like to describe. And at WeWorkRemotely, what we did is that we now have like company profiles where companies can really like explain what their mission is, what their culture is like, the benefits they offer. Even we have like a section, I mean, obviously because it's about hiring, but we have a section where they can describe how their hiring process is, because you can also learn a lot about how a company works just by the hiring process. And we've seen that companies that feel that information and that offer as much information as possible. We have companies that even, have videos or links to their team pages, or, like the more information you can give the job seekers, the better. And that way you can not only attract more people, but attract more valuable people for your company, because you don't want to attract just anyone. You want to attract the right person.
Right. And I always advise my clients, to think about this vacancy description, not like about job GD, right? Template GD, but you should think about this as a kind of storytelling, and that's always what I advise my clients, and we help with this also. Just once we get this, this template GD, like you mentioned, right, the requirements, and we're always transforming it, just trying to put some emotions, right, trying to put some culture stuff there. I mean, and it works, So I completely agree with you.
Definitely. And when I've looked for a job, whenever, for example, I see job listings that are like very serious, I'm like, well, that's not like my not my style. Like I want like a more relaxed place. But like, for example, if I see another job title like something unicorn or stuff like that, it's like it's not attractive for me. So like companies also have to do that work. And especially now where like the market is so weird and so many things are happening, like companies really need to think about their culture and like what they can offer to job seekers. It's not like before, working remotely was like a huge thing where you could just sell that as the main, it was like the main selling point. But right now it's like, okay, remote work, and what else? Like, what else can you offer me?
Yeah, it's
right?
Commodity,
because there are so many, so many companies are working remotely now, and it doesn't make a huge difference right now. So I mean, that's so important.
Yeah. And you mentioned about the market that it's kind of weird, right? So with that, let's talk a bit about the future of remote work. And was this news of big companies like Twitter, Meta, they reversing their remote work policies, So do you believe that this could, be a sort of it'll have this impact on the remote work as a trend, potentially maybe in 5 years we'll all, just return to offices? What do you think?
Not. I don't think so. I mean, I think it's, companies like Meta and Twitter and like big companies that are having these policies. Of course, I think it affects in everyone's thoughts, right? Like I know if for like during the pandemic, a lot of leaders were like, well, remote work, it seems to be working for everyone. And I can understand why some people are like, no, let's go back to the office. We need to see each other. And like, I can understand that. And, it has to do a lot with leadership and like how
Right.
internal processes work and all of those things. But I think like a more important question would be like how work will look like in the future. And I'm not talking, like just about remote work, but kind of like flexibility. Something we really like at WeWorkRemotely, and we've had a lot of discussions about it, is that what is remote work? Like, can we define, like, can it be just one thing? And all the times we've had these discussions, like, no, like remote work looks so different for everyone. And each company has like their own policies, and each company has like their own thoughts behind it. And I think like what's more important is like to think about how companies can offer flexibility to their employees. And it doesn't mean that it has to be 100% remote. It doesn't mean that it has to be 100% in the office.
There should be choice, right? For
exactly.
employees.
And I think that's like I think that would be like a more interesting discussion to have. Like, will we still care about choice, and will we still care about flexibility, and will we still like care about work-life balance and whatever that might look like, right? So I hope, like people that want to work remotely can still work remotely. And I hope that people that like working in an office can still work in an office in better environments. Like, I do have friends that work in offices and are like, how can you work remotely? Like, don't you miss people? Don't you be in an office? And for me, personally, that's a no. Like, I love working alone and I love working in my little home office, and I love that. But I like, even my husband, he's like, he loves working in the office, and he loves, and it works for him. And for him, working remotely is like, no. So I think like what I hope is that more people feel empowered to look for the jobs they want to have, and that, there are companies that can offer that, even if it's remote, even if it's in the office, even if it's hybrid or whatever that might look like, that people can have that power and not the companies.
Okay, and again, speaking about the current market, right? So we observed kind of decrease in job posting, and this frozen vacancies and different job boards, and we see this layoff news all the time, right? So, and has WeWorkRemotely, experienced maybe something similar trend, or it's you don't see anything like this? You don't see that this kind of crisis is here?
That's a great question. We've seen it, of course. Like, of course, we've seen, we have big customers that are posting less, and but we also have companies that had posted less before that now are posting more. But something and I actually looked at this some weeks ago, and I was looking at the numbers of job listings that were published, like historically. So I cannot remember the exact numbers, but obviously during the pandemic, the number of job listings grew like 1,000%. It was crazy, and this was a very high, very, very high. And so now I did the numbers for last year and for this year. And although it decreased, obviously, because it was so high, there are more openings now than before the pandemic. So, like the market keeps growing. Companies still want remote workers. Companies are still going remote. But of course, like it's a big difference from 2 years ago when everyone was working remotely to now where, some people are going back to the office and all of that. But of course, it's, like it's different from 2 years ago, but it's still growing. And it's been, like from I would love to give you. I should have looked at the numbers right now, but it's like I think from before the pandemic to now, we have like 50% more job listings,
Mm-hmm.
which is a huge number. But of course,
Mm-hmm.
when you come from like such a such a high,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like it doesn't matter. But that's why I think like remote work will stay here. Like I don't see it going
Okay.
anywhere, even if
Okay.
big companies are like, no, come back to the office.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. And I'm not sure if you can if you can talk about this, but still, I'm gonna ask. So, from the marketing probably perspective, from the sales perspective, do you see any differences in terms of the client itself, right? So the client, this what it's called, the target audience, probably that is just posting on your job boards. Is it different, from maybe a year ago? Are those companies are kind of from other industries, or from they have different size from what do you see now? So can you just go a bit deeper into this?
I don't know if I can talk about this, but I will. I don't see a big difference actually, and like something that when I started working at WeWork Remotely, I kind of like was very naive on how big remote work was,
Mm-hmm.
and how huge remote companies could be.
Mm-hmm.
And like we have companies posting that have like 5,000 employees that like that are huge, that are
Mm-hmm.
global companies, and we have smaller companies that have 20 employees. We Work Remotely is a very tiny company. We're like 10 people or less. So I don't see a difference, and I think something that it's like really great about We Work Remotely.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm biased,
Okay.
but something that I've seen on employers that hire through We Work Remotely is that they have a big commitment with remote work, and that's the reason they hire at We Work Remotely, because like we were the one of the first remote job boards that was
Mm-hmm.
around, and for a long time we've supported remote work.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
I think, for example, sizes can change. Industry, not so much. Most of them are in the tech in the
Tech
tech
space.
world.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, in the tech space. So that doesn't change that much. But like what is the same for everyone is like this commitment to remote work and
Mm-hmm.
to offering flexibility and all of those things. So I don't see a big difference really.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, like I've seen like bigger companies that are like, well, like we're stopping right now, but maybe we will start. But I also see companies that are huge, they are still posting.
Mm-hmm.
I see other companies that are smaller and are still posting. So
Okay.
I
That's good to
really
know.
haven't seen, yeah. And like for people that are looking for a job, and I know it sometimes can be like discouraging,
Mm-hmm.
but there's still a lot out there. We just need to look in the right places, I
Okay.
guess.
Sounds good. And we work remotely is just the right place. Yeah.
Yes,
I agree with you.
exactly.
Okay. And probably, I guess my last question for today. What are your top three recommendations for companies that are just beginning to exploring this global hiring?
Mm, that's a good question. Also, maybe I can give more. No, I'm kidding. I think one of the biggest misconceptions, and I think it's also because like I'm Mexican, so
Mm-hmm.
I know when I first looked for a remote job, one of the main reasons I wanted one was because I wanted to get paid in dollars, and like I just wanted to earn more money. Like
Okay.
that was my main thought behind it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know I would love it that much. But I think like one big misconception that there is that it's just about it being cheaper.
Okay.
And I mean, you might know it also
Yeah.
because of your background and what you do. And a lot of companies, think just it's like, it's just cheaper. So we will go remote and we'll just
Mm-hmm.
hire, like anywhere. And what I've discovered now is that, of course, when you hire in Latin America, in like in Eastern Europe or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, in Southeast Asia, it might be cheaper. But it's also about diversity, and it's also, like about bringing different views to your company, bringing different skills to your company. And I think that's so valuable. Yeah, it's like, it's not only about that. It's so much more than just, like saving some money.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
again, sometimes what you save in money, you have to spend or like invest in infrastructure. You have to spend in other things that maybe
Absolutely.
otherwise you would not, right? Like, even for example, if you're using an EOR or whatever, those
Mm-hmm.
things cost, and maybe you're
Right.
saving money, but it's more, like about the talent, and it's more about bringing different views to your company. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's one of the things I would tell companies, like, don't think just about saving costs, but about like what remote work will bring to your company.
Mm-hmm.
Another advice, I think another thing is, like, you should have like like a real hiring process in place.
Mm-hmm.
Something that really amazed me when I started working at WeWorkRemotely is that some companies are kind of like just doing it on the go, or so it seems. And that's such like not a good experience for job seekers.
Right.
And like, obviously these processes need to be tweaked, and you need to improve them each time, and you learn every time. But just like having like an overview of, and by the way, we have a guide that we work remotely, a remote hiring guide. And like, just having like an overview of what that process will look like, from
Mm-hmm.
doing this even from defining why, like, who, like, for what role you want to hire, to like the description, to how the interview process will look like, if
Mm-hmm.
it will have a task or not, if it will require some paid trial, whatever that might be. You need to really have that in place. It's especially in remote work, I think everything has to be so thoughtful and so kind of like planned and intentional, that you really, really need to think about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my last advice, just like, go for remote focused job boards. I know, like, I know there are like tons of job boards, and we're not the only one. But definitely, if you want to hire people that want to work remotely, not just for the sake of working remotely, but that
Mm-hmm.
truly love working remotely and know
Okay.
how to use tools, and know, like, have more experience, definitely go to job boards that are remote focused. What I've heard from customers is that sometimes they use other platforms that are bigger, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, yes, they do get a lot of candidates, but they're not that aligned to what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that would be like my
Okay.
other
Okay.
my other. And I guess one final thing,
Mm-hmm.
and talking about like all these resources that we have out there, and like so many things that now you can learn on the internet. Just like, if you're starting to think about this, or you're already hiring, or whatever that might look like for your company, it's like not one size fits all. So what works
Right.
for some companies will definitely not work for you, and what works for you, maybe other companies will think like, what are you doing? So also, I think that requires a bit of like trial and error, and all those things. But yeah, I think that like that. I mean, it's like in anything, you just need to start doing it, and tweak it, and improve it, and it will work out.
Super. Yeah. 100%. Okay. I guess we're good. So thanks a lot, Justine, for sharing your insights. We wish you and we work remotely all the best in your journey. And yeah, see you soon.
Thank you so much for the invitation, and yeah, hopefully see you soon.
Absolutely.